Hi, everybody. I'm Karen Hartglass. You are listening to It's All About Food. Thank you so much for joining me. This is a very important conversation. Now, I've been doing this podcast since 2009 on the Progressive Radio Network broadcast here in Manhattan. And many of the conversations we have are redundant to an extent. We talk about the same things. We talk about eating a whole food plant diet, a vegan diet, for many, 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 many reasons. I can't think of any reasons not to do this, but it's getting very hot. And here in the East Coast, we've had an early heat wave. The heat wave is hitting the entire planet more than we've ever seen before. I'm sitting in my apartment. I have my cold drink with me. You have to continually hydrate. I don't want to turn on the air conditioning. I don't want to add to the problem, but I have air conditioning. And I didn't want to buy an air conditioner a long time ago when I first moved into this apartment, but I finally broke down in 2006 because sometimes it just gets so hot that it can harm you. So it's hot. And I want to bring on Dr. Sailesh Rao to talk about what we can do to heal our planet. Thank you for joining me. Dr. Sailesh Rao is the founder and executive director of Climate Healers. Now, Sailesh has an incredible resume, an incredible bio. This is a brilliant person who has done many wonderful things, and he has decided to focus his energy on healing the planet at this time, to use his brilliance, his genius, and his compassion. So, Climate Healers, I don't know if you remember this, Sailesh, but we spoke 10 years ago, and it was maybe some 7 years after you had founded Climate Healers. So, we may repeat some of the things we spoke about then, but I really want to concentrate on what's been done in those 10 years and what we need to do now. So I'm just going to turn it over to you. How are you?
Oh, I'm doing good. Thank you. Thank you for asking. It's busy though, because there's a lot of work that needs to be done. And it is, as you said, it's all about the food. And I think a lot of people know this, but they're just pretending not to see it. They're pretending not to know. I stopped going to the UN meetings in 2021. I went to the one in Glasgow, the climate change meeting in Glasgow, and that was the first one that they did after the pandemic. And I thought, okay, now let's get serious, right? Now they'll get serious, I hope. So it was the same. They're serving meat and dairy at a climate change conference, which is unacceptable behavior. It's like serving cigarettes at a lung cancer conference. It just doesn't make any sense, right?
Yep.
And so that's when I came back and said, okay, that's it. I'm done with this. I'm not going to attend anymore until they get serious. Because, when I go to engineering meetings, and I've done a lot of these, I used to go to these standards meetings for the internet. People came there because they wanted to solve problems. And they were serious people who really wanted to solve problems. And it occurred to me that the UN meetings, there are no serious people anymore. They're not really looking at solving the problem. They're trying to figure out how to make money of this new disaster. So everything is a money-making opportunity.
Yep.
We turn it into that. And I guess in a way, even my engineering meetings were about people trying to make money. It's not that they weren't interested in making money, but they were trying to make money by solving a problem. Here, the problem just gets thrown away. It's just an opportunity. How do you frame it in a way that you make money? And unfortunately, that's what our society has become. We are really not solving problems that are right in front of our faces. that have obvious solutions that are right in front of our faces too. And we are just massaging it to figure out how to make money off of it. And that seems to be what everyone is trying to do. And to me, it was shocking that you would do that to a planet, the only planet that is harboring life, right, in our immediate galactic neighborhood.
Mm-hmm.
How could you lose a planet like that, right? Because of some silly game we are playing with money.
The big question is how, Sailesh, how?
Yeah,
How do we make change? How can we do what we're doing currently? How, maybe why?
Right.
But you mentioned the pandemic and what has happened since the pandemic, and what has happened basically is nothing. And we have so much evidence that the symptoms of COVID-19 can be drastically reduced if we're healthy. And
Right.
how do we get healthy? We eat a plant-based diet. We know that. So we just keep getting hit in the head with more reasons to eat a whole food plant diet, and yet we ignore it. And now we're hot. Are you
Right.
still in Phoenix?
Right. Yes, I'm still in Phoenix.
It's like 110, over 110 degrees.
Right. Yeah, we had 32 days of over 110 degrees continuously last year.
Mm-hmm.
So we are breaking records all over the place. Yeah.
You know, I was reading, I have a friend, she's a Sheikah of Kuwait. And I was reading about how hot it was in Kuwait. And basically, they give all of their residents like air conditioning. You know, they just give it to them and they take care of them. It's okay. We're rich and we'll just keep you all cool, which is not a solution. It's a
Right.
temporary fix.
Right.
Okay. Now this is an audio podcast. You can only hear us speaking, but I'm fortunate to be able to be looking at you through the magic of Zoom. And I always see a smile on your face. I always see a very calm interior and a very hopeful interior. And I have a question, how do you do that? And you have said that we are going to reach this vegan world in a very short amount of time.
Right.
I think on my last podcast, you said 15 years, there would be dramatic change. And so we're coming up to that. And I'm just wondering how you're feeling about that.
Well, it is inevitable. There is no question. It has to happen, right?
It has to happen.
It has to happen. Otherwise, we are the one species that lost its planet, right? I don't think we are going to be that. I think I see several things happening, So I tend to focus on the positive side of what is happening. Because if you focus on the negative side, you amplify it. Whatever you focus on tends to get amplified in the universe, right? So I said, okay, no, let's just focus on the positive side of what's happening. And we see that more and more, the evidence is coming out saying that there is a way out. See, the thing is, if you don't know that there is a way out, it's time to panic. But if you know that there is a way out, it's just telling people, hey, there is a way out and we are going there. And you come along. If you come along, then we'll solve the problem. And I say the best way to help people come along is to actually start feeding them healthy food. So I say it's the job of all of us who have understood that there is a solution to actually implement this as a solution. Start feeding people healthy food. And I say we can do this in communities. We can do this in churches, in mosques, in temples. Any place, any universities and schools where people gather together and eat together, they have to be given healthy food for free. And if they want to eat unhealthy food, they have to pay for it. So flip it around. Right now we have a system that's subsidizing unhealthy food. It's subsidizing the burgers. It's subsidizing the cheese. The government is paying for it. Our tax dollars are paying for it, right? And that's how they are promoting diseases in all of us, so that we get sick, and then they feed us pharmaceuticals. So it's a system that's trying to figure out how to grab the money, how to extract the money back from us. Whatever salary they gave you, they want it back. They want it back in the form of, medicines or whatever.
Mm.
So that's the system we have. It's a game we are playing. It's a game in which you figure out, based on using the rules, how do you extract money from different people and for yourself?
Would we
Right?
pay for feeding people all of this wonderful food by not subsidizing the bad foods? Have you
Well,
thought about how that would happen?
yeah, that would be ideal, right? If people
Right.
stop subsidizing bad food and start subsidizing good food, that would be the ideal thing to do. That's what a sensible society would be doing. But we don't live in a sensible society, right? We live in a society where everything has been corrupted. People's minds have been corrupted, and or politics have been corrupted. There is just so much lying going on
Mhm.
that it is. I mean, it should be obvious to any child that there is a lot of lying going on. Yeah.
I
So,
believe I do what you do, and I agree with you, and I'm glad that you're doing what you do. I believe we need to be focusing on the positive. We need to be focusing on the solution. We shouldn't be focusing on on the bad things that are happening. And I opened this podcast saying it's hot.
right.
So there should be a way to present that and make it a positive thing.
No,
I'll
that's
work.
not. That's a signal from nature. That has to be taken as is.
uh, but just an example, I had some family over for dinner last night, and it's hot. Did I say it was hot? And
Yeah.
I wanted to make a dessert. I have a recipe for a raw fruit tart that I made, and I will share it again on this podcast link because it's just delightful, and it's, of course, it's all vegan and it's fresh, and it's everybody was saying, "Oh my God, this is so good," and that's the point, right? Healthy, delicious food, get it in their mouths, show them there's no deprivation, and we can nip this problem
Mhm.
right in the bud.
Right. Right. Imagine that, right? So
I
this,
do every
yeah,
day.
but it's actually a complete system transformation, which is why there is so much resistance to it. Okay, it's a complete system transformation. And the resistance is coming from those who think they have won in the old game. They are the winners in the old game. And they're
Mhm.
saying, no, I don't want to give up my winnings. I want to stay. I want the system to stay, right? And they are the ones who are resisting it. All the rest, the people who are downtrodden, who have been stepped on, who have been used and exploited, they will come along, right, with whichever system you create. So I say it's up to us now to create this new system, and this new system has to be based on reversing everything that we have done, because everything we are doing now is heating the planet.
Mhm.
So how do you cool the planet? Well, first of all, you can't have war because war heats. You can't have, you can't have starvation and hunger. That heats the planet. So everything that we do today, we deliberately starve people. So there are 800 million people who are not getting enough food in the world today, even though there is plenty of food in the planet.
Mhm.
Okay? We are actually taking half the crops we grow and feed it to our animals. Our animals are eating 5 times as much food as we eat. So I say that world hunger is a choice we are making 3 times a day. And those who are eating animal foods have to take the responsibility for causing world hunger and therefore causing 8 million people to die every year from hunger related causes. Okay. So there is all this responsibility that we need to own up to. Yeah, we are doing it. And then we can switch, Otherwise, we are pretending it's something else that's causing the hunger. No, it's not. Climate change is caused by what we are eating 3 times a day. Okay.
You have
All of our
your
environmental degradation, we are causing it 3 times a day.
Well, I've been to climatehealers.org. I've read some of your position papers, including animal agriculture and the environment. You write, I grabbed it here somewhere. The animal agriculture industry is responsible for at least 87% of all greenhouse gases. No one else is saying that. 87%. Now, and you mentioned Robert Goodland and Jeff Anhang, and I remember speaking with Robert Goodland. What a beautiful soul and a brilliant person who started the conversation, adding to the equation when we're trying to figure out how much contribution to human-induced greenhouse gases animal agriculture contributes, and people just weren't looking at everything. And I could say that's okay in the beginning when you're first starting a project, but now we've been looking at it for a long time, and there are things that need to be evaluated better. And so you come up with a number that is profound, 87%.
Right.
I know it's in the paper that you talk about, but what are the things that are we not looking at correctly when we evaluate this contribution?
Well, the way it is being done is that we are emitting so much carbon dioxide, but we are not measuring all of it. We're not counting all of it. So we count fossil fuel-based carbon dioxide, 100% of it. Okay. But when it comes to what we do to land, we take a 70% discount.
We like discounts.
Yeah, I mean, these guys cooked it up. Okay, they cooked it up in the 90s in order to make us look at just solar panels and electric cars as a solution to climate change. And therefore, we can all make money and we can then grow the economy. They cooked it up. Okay, they made it up. So they did this. They said, okay, we can take a 70% discount on CO2 emissions from land use change. And then other factors such that Robert Goodland had counted, like, the respiration of animals. And there were other uncounted emissions. And these are all uncounted emissions. Why are they uncounted? They're officially uncounted emissions. So you take 100% discount on those things, like pasture maintenance fires, biomass burning, all of that, you take 100% discount.
But they give reasons for not including them.
Yeah, they say it's part of the natural cycle.
Right.
And I said, how is this part of a natural cycle when there's a human being involved? We can change it, right? If we don't burn, it doesn't happen. How is this part of the natural cycle? So it's just, to me, as an engineer, it reeks of corruption. It reeks of someone trying to massage the data in order to make you look somewhere else. Okay, because we know that animal agriculture is the leading cause of every other environmental ill on the planet. Everything else.
Air pollution, soil erosion, biodiversity destruction. Yeah.
Yeah, everything is the leading cause. And so the way they're now trying to market the environmental problems is that look at only climate change. That's the number one thing. Even though we know that it's not even the number one thing, it's the number 4 thing. According to the Stockholm Resilience Institute, it's not even the number one problem. The number one problem is loss of biodiversity. And then comes chemical pollution. Then comes, nitrogen and phosphorus pollution. Then comes climate change and carbon dioxide, and CO2 pollution. So in their estimate, it's the number 4 problem. So they're trying to tell us that's the number 1 problem. That's the only problem. And for that problem, let's all buy solar panels and electric cars and solve the problem. So this way I can make some money. Okay. This is the framing that's going on. Okay. This is the utterly corrupt framing that's going on. And if you look at it as a system, you realize this is the entire system that needs to change. It needs to
I
transform
appreciate your perspective. I have an engineering background. I appreciate that you're looking at it from this perspective as a system. Because I believe that that's the way to make change, is to evaluate the whole system and and then see where the solutions will actually work. And we're not doing that.
Right.
But you also talk about, I know I read this somewhere on your website or in one of your papers, that we need to include the spirit in solving this giant problem.
Right. To me, it is, it's when we talk about a transformation, it's a spiritual and cultural transformation.
Mm.
And this is what Gus Speth had said. He said that he had a famous quote in 2013 in a BBC radio program, where he said, "I used to think the top environmental problems were biodiversity loss, ecosystem collapse, and climate change. And I thought that with 30 years of good science, we could solve these problems. I was wrong. The top environmental problems are selfishness, greed, and apathy. And to solve those, we need a spiritual and cultural transformation." Okay. And when we talk about a spiritual and cultural transformation, it is about acknowledging that we are part. See, what is spirituality? Spirituality to me is connectedness with nature. Right? So we think we are disconnected from nature, and we can do what we want to nature, and the nature will not have any reaction to it. Well, nature is reacting to it. Nature is saying you're done with that phase. Nature is saying that, you've been a part of nature whether you like it or not. And so for us to thrive, for us to survive on this planet, we need to acknowledge that nature is us. We have been nature all along, right? And we have been actually heating the planet for the last 10,000 years. And we have actually done something amazing. We have heated the entire planet so that it can never go back another ice age again. That is amazing that we have done that, right? So we once we acknowledge that, and a lot of people are acknowledging that we're heating the climate of the planet, then we have the responsibility to cool it. And we have the responsibility to maintain it. So we become the thermostat species of the planet. Okay. So I say that once we accept our responsibility as the thermostat species of the planet, then we will know what to do, which is you have to first cool. So I say first, acknowledge that nature has been using us, not the other way around. So we think we are using nature, we are extracting from nature. No, nature has been using us to heat herself. And now she's slapping us awake saying, now wake up and start cooling, which has to become a dance with nature as opposed to fighting nature, a war with nature.
I mentioned before that you're in Phoenix, Arizona, and you've been there for quite some time.
12 years.
12 years. So it's hotter there than most places.
It's getting hotter and hotter.
And are people responding anymore there because it's hotter?
People are, there are two, in Phoenix, we have the richest people who are retired, who want their golf courses and their artificial lakes. And we have the poor people who are stuck in the streets, who are basically literally dying. Yeah. And a lot of us who are in between trying to figure out how to solve this, how to address this. See, Phoenix is still getting some water, right? So we have water in our taps. And whatever water you have, you need to be using that to restore the trees that we had cut. And if we did that, Phoenix will get to be at least 10 degrees cooler than it is today. You can see that. Go under a tree, it's 10 degrees cooler.
So are people planting more trees yet?
Not yet. It's not happening in volume, there are some people who know and who are planting trees in their backyard and stuff, but.
Okay, so we had this pandemic and we didn't pay attention to the message. We will probably have other pandemics. We have the bird flu kind of hovering over us. We're heating up. Some places are almost unlivable.
Mhm.
And yet you have a smile on your face. You say it's inevitable that we will
Right,
make this change.
right.
Do you have any idea what that tipping point is going to be? How hot does it have to get for us to pay attention? When are we going to be uncomfortable enough
I
to,
think, I really think, see, this is a transformation from the uh, patriarchy to mothers taking over.
mm, mhm.
Okay. And I was just introduced to the Founding Mothers movement. And they're launching in July 5th. Okay. The day after Independence Day in the US.
Okay, I know nothing about them.
Oh, you need to. They're
Yeah,
amazing.
the
Yeah.
founding mothers tell us.
Yeah. Founding Mothers movement. And so they're in Virginia, actually. They're headquartered in Virginia. And so, I mean, it's things like this that give me tremendous, uh, encouragement that this is happening, because it's the mothers who have to come together and say, we've had enough.
Mm-hmm.
We've had enough, and that we are going to now create a system in which no one has to go hungry. No one has to fight. What are we fighting each other for? Then there is a common objective, right? The
Mm-hmm.
planet is overheating. And the planet is saying, you want a common objective? I have given you one. Cool the planet. And if you don't cool the planet, you don't have a place to live. So it is, and we are fighting for the last place where you can stay on Earth. Everyone else is dead. I mean, that's what we are doing right now, right?
Mm-hmm.
Fighting like crazy over this, when we can just restore the planet and reverse it. So
Pretty
it
quickly.
becomes pretty quickly, yeah.
Pretty quickly.
It's actually already happening. See, when you count all the emissions, it turns out that nature is already sequestering 91% of our emissions.
Mm.
So we are burning, we are causing all this pasture maintenance fire. So we basically chop down trees and burn them, chop down bushes and burn them, because the animals did not eat those bushes. Right? So on grazing lands. So we have to do these pasture maintenance fires. Otherwise, there'll be no more pasture. The forest will come back.
Ha.
Okay. The forest will come back. So to prevent the forest from coming back, we chop everything that's growing and burn it every year. And NASA has pictures of the fires that we set every year. And it's widespread. It's everywhere.
Mm.
And we do this and we don't count the emissions from that. And nature is, sequestering it. She's coming
Wow.
back. She's restoring it again. So which means nature is trying to heal. All we have to do is get out of the way.
In your animal and the in your report, agriculture and the environment, you list, I think there are 51 items.
Yeah, it's like a legal brief that I did. Yeah.
Yeah. And one of them was talking about economic growth, that economic growth is a redundant goal, you called it.
Right.
Now, a lot of policy is based on economic growth, and it's something that I never really understood. Why do we need economic growth?
Right.
And
why do we need economic growth?
Why do we need it?
Good question. Why do we need it? Because they're running a Ponzi scheme. That's my question.
I'm raising my hand. Somebody, why do we need economic growth?
Right. Because they're running a Ponzi scheme.
It's a Ponzi scheme.
Yes, they're running a Ponzi scheme. Okay. And and they're scared that the Ponzi scheme is going to collapse. If there is no growth, the Ponzi scheme collapses.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, because for any Ponzi scheme, you need newer and more people coming in, to run the
More
scheme.
and more gullible suckers.
Exactly. You need more and more gullible suckers, right? So that's what economic growth is all about. Who are the gullible suckers? Nature. We are just grabbing from the animals. We're grabbing from forests. And that's how we keep growing. Okay. And we're destroying as we grow. And I say that if you look at the 17 Sustainable Development Goals of the UN and you meet the other 16 goals, which is no poverty, zero hunger, good health and well-being, quality education. So you meet all the other goals and you just ignore economic growth. Do you really care that the economy is growing or not?
No.
Nobody does. So why is that goal there? That goal is there because the UN is trying to con you.
Yeah.
The UN is basically a conning, it's a bunch of con men sitting there. And I'm saying they're trying to con you into thinking that that we are addressing all the other problems by just growing the economy.
Well,
So we're all in this together.
Wouldn't
right?
an economist tell you that you have to grow the economy?
The
That it
economist will tell
doesn't
you,
work unless it's growing?
right? The economist will tell you that as you grow and grow and grow, then there'll be things trickling down to the poor, and that's how they will
the trickle down thing.
the trickle down. Yeah, that's what the economist is trying to pretend, right? But I'm saying, give it to an engineer. I mean, you have a bunch of goals to meet. You have to have engineering teams meeting those goals if you're really serious about it. Okay, because engineers have actually solved problems.
Yeah,
They've actually met
I
goals.
agree
right?
with you there.
Right? Give it to engineers and they will tell you that that goal is redundant, needs to be thrown out. Okay? And you need to then look at the game we are playing, right? I mean, because ultimately we tell stories and we play games. That's how we coordinate our actions among millions and billions of us.
Once again, I'm going to say that I agree with you. Unfortunately, engineers are humans.
Mm-hmm.
And there are many engineers who may not be as good as they can be, or they may be highly influenced by the inputs they're getting from their superiors, making assumptions that they shouldn't make. And then there is that word corruption that also plays in. I was in the semiconductor world for a couple of decades, and I even saw the padding of data or the changing of some data in order to let some product slip through so it would pass and you could let it go to the customer. And it's horrifying, but it happens.
Right. Yeah. No, engineers are also human, as you said. But, engineers, we engineered the world that we live in.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. But so I say that engineers now have the responsibility to fix the world so that the world that we live in is thriving. But for that, you need an overall engineering project. So I say it is an infrastructure upgrade project. So it's a civilization infrastructure upgrade project. Okay. What is civilization all about? Is how do you get your food? How do you get your shelter? How do you get your clothing? And then how do you contribute to it, right? And everyone has their own role to play. But right now, the game we are playing is how do you get money to a few people at the top?
Mm-hmm.
That's the game we are playing. It's got nothing to do with the planet, right? And so I say that we don't have an overall objective that has to do with the planet at the moment in our civilization. And once we organize around that overall objective, then we will know how to optimize our resources properly.
All right, tell us about the vegan convergence of the peoples, number 18, July 27th to 28th. I just registered.
Oh, wonderful. It would be good to have you there. We have been converging once a quarter. And this started during the pandemic because we used to do an annual meeting, in-person meeting, and we couldn't do the in-person meeting in 2020. So we said, okay, let's meet online. And then we decided to do it once a quarter. And starting right after I came back from Glasgow, from the UN Conference of the Parties, I said, they are not having a real convergence. They're not really looking at how to solve this problem. So we have to do this ourselves. So we started calling it the Vegan Convergence of the Peoples, VCOP. Okay. Because veganism to me is the foundation, is the core of a climate healing civilization. And exploiting animals is the foundation of a climate heating civilization. It's the very core of it. And this is why they're clinging to it. Because, if you stop exploiting animals, the entire thing falls apart. Their entire money system falls apart. Everything in the system, everything in the civilization is about climate heating. The currency is designed for that. The games we play are designed for that. We're all playing competitive games that's designed for heating. The stories we tell are stories of violence and we tell stories of violence to our children.
Yeah.
That's how we train them into becoming workers in this climate heating civilization. So I say we need to just change our stories, change our games, and we need to have it's very simple, right? And my granddaughter taught me all this because she was just being herself. And I was just watching her, observing her, and realizing, wow, if we just stay like that, we would be healing the climate, not heating the climate. Okay. So it's not that hard to comprehend. And so I wrote a little book about that called The Pinky Promise. And I'm happy to send you a copy of that.
Love to see it.
Yeah. And so basically in the Pinky Promise, we talk about this, it's a 12-step program for how do you become a climate healer from a climate heater, right? So it's 12-step program, and it's like AA. I mean, it's literally like AA. It's the same steps. And that's what she walked me through. And of course, changing what we eat is at the foundation of it, because it's about being kind to all life, being kind to all life. And so that, then how do you create a system around climate healing? And I said, that's an amazing problem to work on. And, and when I see people like the founding mothers coming together and saying, we need engineers to help us. We need lawyers to help us. We need doctors to help us. I say, that's it. Coalesce around the mothers. Coalesce around the mothers who will now go and demand that these founding fathers give it up. Enough already. We are done with that. This constant war, endless war, is starting with the war against animals. So that's the foundational war that we are conducting. War on nature. Okay. The war on nature started in, long time ago. We had been burning down forests. We've been treating it as if, they're expendable. And I say, imagine. And then they talk about taking us to Mars, right? And starting a civilization on Mars. I say, imagine that you're on Mars and you have created the conditions for life to thrive on Mars. So you've created the carbon cycle, the nitrogen cycle, the phosphorus cycle, the water cycle, everything you need, the oxygen cycle, everything you need to create conditions for life to thrive on Mars. And then you even managed to grow some grass, grow some plants, and you managed to grow some insects on Mars. And suppose somebody comes along and chops down all the trees and chops down the bushes and he steps on the insects. How would you treat him? Wouldn't you say, how dare you? Do you know how hard it was for me to create that? Right?
Yeah,
that right. Level. So there, when we get to that point, life has become sacred. When you create life from scratch, life has become sacred, right? And I say, if we treat life as sacred today on Earth, we will be cooling the climate automatically.
Well, our education needs to change.
Education needs to change. Everything needs to change.
Everything needs to change.
Everything needs to change. Okay? It's not just education. I mean, what we educate, how we create things, how we treat each other, how we treat the animals, everything needs to change. So we become like children again. And I say it's actually nothing new. It's you're going back to who you were before you got conditioned.
The vegan movement is not new. The word vegan is relatively new, but people for centuries have been
thousands of years
have been talking about ahimsa and treating all beings and the planet with kindness and compassion and nurturing.
Right.
So that's not new. It's not a trend. Something that is new and is disturbing is that many of the vegan activists have been corrupted, perhaps I can say, because they're starting to believe that they cannot make change unless they're within the capitalist system.
Yeah.
Which means that they need to create products that are going to make money in order to get people to come on board and not eat animals. And it doesn't make any sense. And I don't see it working. I noticed that the people that you have speaking at your conference are not those people, are not the ones that have been corrupted. They're the ones that see a clear and simple solution.
Yeah, well, I also, don't discount what they are trying to do, because they are trying to create this stepping stone.
Sure.
For the people who are stuck thinking that, first of all, we have been taught in the education system that protein comes from meat. Apparently over 90% of Americans believe that protein is only found in meat.
And we've taught them that.
We've taught them that, right? Now, that's a deliberate act of violence that we do to children. I say when we lie to children like that, you're committing a crime against humanity. And it needs to be treated as a crime against humanity, right? And so lying to children in our textbooks, I was lied to as a child in my textbook. Same thing. I was told that protein comes from meat. Calcium comes from milk. Okay. So these are essential for your well-being. And, to me, lying to children is utterly despicable. Systematically lying to children is utterly despicable.
I agree with you there. One of the things I enjoy doing on this podcast is promoting as many vegan children's books as I can, because it starts on day one. It starts when you build a foundation, and when you have a belief system that's based on lies, it's very hard to change.
Right. Yeah. And so this is why I promised my granddaughter that I'll never ever lie to her. And then she used me to figure out that Santa Claus is not real. Tooth Fairy is not real. The Easter Bunny is not. So all these things, these lies we tell our children, they're all part of the same game of convincing them and conning them into becoming addicted consumers. Okay. So we put candy at eye level in supermarkets. Why do we parents allow that? Why do we even step into a supermarket that does that? Why don't we write letters complaining to supermarkets? How dare you try to addict my children?
Why don't we?
Why don't we, right? That's the thing. I say that should be like, we should be screaming, because this is a battle between corporations and children.
Yeah.
And the corporations are trying to lure children into becoming consumers, into becoming addicts, into becoming diabetics, into becoming heart disease patients. It's because these are all, when they grow up, they become that, right? Into becoming obese and overweight, because they are trying to convince children to eat unhealthy foods. The corporations are doing that. But why do parents side with the corporations against the children? Because we have been also convinced, right? We have also been conned.
Yes.
So it's
you mentioned the founding mothers, and I've seen movements popping up where mothers are so distraught at their children from being autistic or having these autoimmune diseases, and nobody knows what to do with them. And somehow a few of them find out that if they change their diet and stop giving them artificial colors and flavorings, things turn around.
Right.
And we give them a lot of credit for doing that. And for the mothers and parents that are frustrated because their children are sick and they find some of these organizations, it's just like an amazing breath of relief. But still, they're not going far enough either. They're just
Yeah.
doing what they can to heal their children, but it's not the entire planet.
But actually it begins with us, you know. So
Yeah.
we have to heal ourselves before we can heal the planet, right? So I talk about the 8 healing actions
Mm.
because the American College of Lifestyle Medicine came up with the 8 risky behaviors that are causing 90% of the healthcare costs in the world. And I just took the 8 risky behaviors and just reversed it to
And
make
make
them,
them positive.
yeah, to
Yeah,
reverse it.
let's hear them.
So the 8 risky behaviors are: poor diet is number one, and then lack of exercise, then smoking, lack of health screening, poor stress management,
Mm.
then in lack of sleep,
Mm.
poor standard of care, and excessive alcohol consumption. So the 8 healing behaviors are: healthy vegan diet, a whole food plant-based vegan diet, uh, from lack of exercise to regular exercise. So yogasana. So do your routines, daily, regular exercise. From smoking, it's conscious breathing.
Mm.
So take in the oxygen, consciously in your body. Fourth, from uh, lack of health screening to regular health routines. So, which is what we call sadhana, which is doing the same thing for half an hour every day. So you get centered, right? So you do your exercise and you do your conscious breathing and you do your meditation. So which is the fifth one, from poor stress management to meditation and awareness,
Mm.
and from inadequate sleep to adequate sleep, of course. And I think if you do the first 5, you will get sleep. Yeah. From poor standard of care, I say, to a sense of purpose. So sense of purpose, as humanity, we now have a sense of purpose because we have to cool the planet. We have to restore the biodiversity of the planet. We have to reverse the destruction that has happened. And eighth is from excessive alcohol consumption to a contact with nature, to being
Mm.
in nature, because alcohol consumption comes from disconnection with nature,
Mm.
thinking that you're separate, thinking that you don't belong. And I'm saying, no, you belong exactly as you are. You've always belonged. And now you have to find your role to play, right, in this new transformation. And we are here at this time, we are alive at this time because we can contribute to it. So nature has selected us, saying, you are it.
You're calling this the 8 what?
The 8 healing actions, right? So 8 healing behaviors. So I
Okay,
think
8.
these 8 healing behaviors should be normal, should be taught
They should be taught in schools. And just
everywhere.
like the governor of Louisiana, who just insisted the 10 Commandments should be in all the schools, we should have these 8 healing
Healing.
actions in all schools and taught,
Exactly.
which would be far more powerful than putting the 10 Commandments up.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. I mean, 10 commandments, you have to follow them, thou shalt not kill is one of them.
Hello. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Right.
And who are we not killing?
Right.
Animals, the planet,
Right.
ourselves?
Right.
Yeah. Yeah. Oh, Sailesh, we have a lot of work to do,
But it's actually quite simple, isn't
but
it?
it's simple.
When you think about it, it's very simple, which is why it's easy for people to grasp, because we're not telling a complicated story.
Mm-hmm.
We're just telling, my granddaughter took me to this movie Cinderella,
Mm-hmm.
and she was 4 years old. And I realized that the movie was for me, not for her.
Oh, what did you learn from the movie?
Because Cinderella said something. Yeah, her mother apparently taught her this. And I'm sure the scriptwriters came up with this, right? But it was amazing. They said, have courage, be kind, and all will be well.
Mm-hmm.
And as soon as she said that, I woke up and I sat up and I
Yeah.
said, this is for me. Because
Courage and be kind. I always loved that.
have
Yeah.
courage and be kind, and all will be well.
Mm-hmm.
Because it takes courage to be kind when everyone else is stabbing at the beast.
I'm breathing that in right now. Have courage and be kind. I'm
have
glad you
courage to
brought that
be.
up because I used to say that a lot and somehow I forgot it. So I got to put that back.
Have courage, be kind, and all will be well. And then the second thing she said was, see, once she said that, I started paying attention to the movie. And I was looking for things that she was saying that I could use. Second thing she said was, just because it is what is done doesn't mean it's what should be done.
Mm-hmm. Oh,
Just,
yes.
just because we've been doing something doesn't mean you have to continue doing it. Because whatever you've been doing all along has caused what you're facing now, right? So you have to figure out what to change. It's not about continuing to do whatever you've been doing all along. So you have to question these things, question your routines, your daily routines.
I can apply that to so many things.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And the third thing she said was, imagine the world as it should be and work for it, as opposed to the world as it is.
That's almost like saying be the change you want to see.
Right. What do you want the world to be? And work for that. You want the world to be peaceful and green and blue. You have to work for that. It's got a brown patch in the middle now. The world, right? I look at my country, the country that I was born in, India, and on the satellite map, it looks brown. 200 years ago, India was 80% covered by forests.
200 years ago.
Yeah. Why can't we bring that back?
Yeah.
Of course,
and they're having 120 plus degree weather as well.
Absolutely. Yeah.
And there's no shade.
There's no shade. Yeah. It's
Okay.
not that complicated, no? To understand.
No, it's not that complicated. And we need these 8 healing actions to read them and do them every day.
Yeah.
Yes, they're beautiful. Okay. A minute or two left. What else do we need to know, Sailesh?
No, I say have faith that this is going to happen. Okay?
That's what I need. Thank you.
Have faith that this is going to happen. Keep the faith, and that this is going to happen because there is no other way. There is no other way. There is the light. There is a light that you can see that this is the way. This way will help all of us. Okay, not just other humans, but also the animals, right? And the animals are looking to us to take the lead. Right now, we created all this technology and these weapons, and we're just killing. And then we're wondering, why is the planet dying around us? I mean, take a wild guess, It's not that complicated to figure this out. Stop the killing and start nurturing them. Start bringing them back. Imagine that's a project, right? That we have to bring back the bears that used to be here, the wolves that used to be here. We have to bring back all the animals that used to be here, bring back the wildlife that used to be here. And you're measured by how fast you are at bringing them back compared to others.
Beautiful. Well, Dr. Sailesh Rao, thank you for this moment. I appreciate selfishly the inspiration you've given me in this moment. And I will post on this podcast page about VCOP 18, Vegan Convergence of the People. Many people should try and tune into that. This one, and they're quarterly, so on a regular basis.
Yeah.
And we will make the change we want to see.
Oh, absolutely. No question.
Okay.
We have to do it. We have no choice.
Thank you for being, and thank you for joining me on It's All About Food.
My pleasure. Thanks.
Stay cool. Okay.
Okay, will do.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
You've been listening to another episode of It's All About Food, produced by the nonprofit organization Responsible Eating and Living, which you can find at responsibleeatingandliving.com. And we are grateful for being broadcast by the Progressive Radio Network. I did mention in the podcast a favorite summer recipe, and I'm linking it in the podcast post. If you want to try it, I hope you do. It's easy, yummy, fresh, sweet, cool, good for you. Oh, maybe I shouldn't say good for you, but it's full of berries and raw nuts and seeds and just very yummy. I'm also adding an infogram of the 8 healing actions that Sailesh mentioned in the program. Perhaps you want to use that in your community organizations, your schools, wherever. We should all start reciting those 8 items. Bring it to memory. Share it with everyone. Healing the planet is up to all of us. And as Dr. Sailesh Rao said, it's simple, and we can do it deliciously. Stay cool and have a very delicious week.